As we continue this series, I would now like to ask the question, if the Watchtower Society truly is God's exclusive channel of truth for this world, wouldn't you think that it would get the prophecies right that it proclaims? But what is the record of this organization on that issue? Let's talk about that. Deuteronomy 18:20 through 22 establishes the credentials of a true prophet. The Watchtower Society quotes this passage in its publication, Aid to Bible Understanding, on page 1348. It says there, from Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter, verse 21 through 22, and this is from the older version of the New World Translation. It says, "And in case you should say in your heart, how shall we know the word that Jehovah has not spoken? When the prophet speaks in the name of Jehovah and the word does not occur or come true, that is the word that Jehovah did not speak. With presumptuousness the prophet spoke it. You must not get frightened at him." But what about that prophet? If we look at the preceding verse, we see the sentence pronounced by God for prophesying falsely. It says in Deuteronomy 18, verse 20, "However, the prophet who presumes to speak in my name a word that I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet must die." Then the reader must determine from this that everything a true prophet says must come true, or that prophet is a false prophet. I want you to notice that this passage clearly states that false prophets were given a death sentence in the Old Testament. So with this criterion in mind, what is a record of the prophecies of the Watchtower Society? Well, having been raised in this organization by my parents, I personally lived with anticipation of the Battle of Armageddon for many, many years. It's sort of like being in an action movie and anticipating the climax of the movie where the good guy finishes off all the bad guys. The problem is that this organization has been anticipating the climax of this prophecy now for over 125 years, as I will now show with direct quotes from Watchtower publication. First of all, we have to ask the question, has this organization ever claimed to be a prophet of God? If the answer to that question is yes, then there is no room for error. That prophet must be 100% correct or be labeled as a false prophet, and according to the Old Testament, would have been sentenced to death. I would now like to show you from their own publications that the answer to that question is yes. They have claimed to be a prophet of God. Quoting from the Watchtower magazine of April 1st, 1972, we read the following. "So does Jehovah have a prophet to help them, to warn them of dangers and to declare things to come? He had a prophet to warn them. This prophet was not one man, but was a body of men and women. It was a small group of footstep followers of Jesus Christ, known at that time as the International Bible Students. Today they are known as Jehovah's Christian Witnesses." This is from the Watchtower of April 1st, 1972, page 197. Now, in order to keep this video from running too long, let me show you a sampling of their prophecies. We will begin with a quotation from the Watchtower publication entitled "The Time is at Hand," published in 1897. Note what it says. It says, "Be not surprised then, when in subsequent chapters we present proofs that the setting up of the kingdom of God has already begun, that it is pointed out in prophecy as due to begin in the exercise of power in AD 1878, and that the battle of the great day of God the Almighty, which will end in 1915 with the complete overthrow of Earth's present rulerships, is already commenced." This is from "The Time is at Hand," Watchtower Bible and Tract Society publication of 1897, page 101. But this publication is merely reiterating what was already stated in a similar manner 5 years prior to this. Note the following. "The date of the close of the battle is definitely marked in the scriptures as October 1914. It is already in progress, its beginning dating from October 1874, from Zion's Watchtower of January 15th, 1892, page 21 through 20. So what happened when all of this failed? Well, when all of this failed to occur, this organization did a lot of backpedaling and then set forth new dates of 1918, which failed, and 1925. Let's look at this prediction. As we have heretofore stated, the Great Jubilee cycle is due to begin in 1925. At that time, the earthly phase of the kingdom shall be recognized. Therefore, we may confidently expect that 1925 will mark the return of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the faithful prophets of old, particularly those named by the apostle in Hebrews chapter 11, to the condition of human perfection. This is from the book Millions Now Living Will Never Die, published 1920, page 89 and 90. So what happened when this failed? Now, when it became obvious that this prediction was about to fail again, I'd like you to notice how this organization characterized any person who believed what they said earlier. It's really amazing. It says, it is to be expected that Satan will try to inject into the minds of the consecrated the thought that 1925 should see an end to the work. Published in the Watchtower, September 1st, 1925, page 262. Well, now, wait a minute. Didn't we see that it was one of their publications that said that? Yes, it was. So who did they say was trying to inject this in the minds of the consecrated? Think about that for a moment. It was them that was trying to do this. So now I want to skip a whole bunch of other insinuated dates and come to the following prediction. This is one that I personally saw. It says, according to this trustworthy Bible chronology, 6,000 years from man's creation will end in 1975, and the seventh period of 1,000 years of human history will begin in the fall of 1975 CE. Consequently, there is now every reason why the human creation will be set free, not by men, but by Almighty God. The long-awaited time for this is at hand. From the publication Life Everlasting and Freedom of the Sons of God, 1966, page 29 and 30. Well, I can tell you that I personally was waiting with great anticipation for this time to come, praying with all my heart that Jehovah God would find me worthy of making it into the New World Order, as I believe was promised by God's only true organization, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And when this did not come true, you can't imagine the backpedaling and the cover-ups that they did to continue this charade. Frustrated and confused, and soon thereafter a non-believer, I personally left the organization in 1981 and was promptly disfellowshipped after refusing to meet with the so-called elders of this group. I have to confess that for a while I was so messed up mentally that I went off the rails and didn't even know whether I believed in God at all. But as time has marched on and more have left this organization, there's a new theory within the Watchtower organization to explain their mistakes. The ridiculous overlapping generation theory that since the first generation was actually alive during the sign, which they claim was in 1914, then any who were alive during the lifetime of that generation could qualify as this generation, as outlined in Matthew 24:34. Now, what is this like? It's like saying that the baby boomers, which is my generation, is the same generation as Generation X and the millennials. In other words, it's like saying that just because I'm alive at the same time as my grandson, that we're in the same generation. By that definition, a generation could, I suppose, be up to 140 years. But this notion is so ridiculous that it really is an insult to the intelligence of rational people. It really is hard for me to believe that the members of this organization are indeed buying it, but they are. So now I would like to encourage you to look these references up for yourself that I have quoted. But as you probably already know, if you are found to be looking up these references to check out what you have learned, you could be in trouble. And as you also know, the organization is always saying that they are continually receiving new light from Jehovah. But I have to ask you in all sincerity, doesn't that just mean that they have been wrong all along and that they have prophesied a false prophecy? So, my question for you to ponder is now the same. Are you in the truth, or are you living a falsehood within the framework of an organization that has proven itself to be a false prophet? All of this information that I have presented is documented in my book, Jehovah's Witnesses, Modern Day Arians or Not, available from Amazon.com. It contains many more documented examples of the perversion of the Bible by Jehovah's Witnesses, false prophecies by this group, and much, much more. So I would encourage you to get a copy. So now we have seen demonstrated proof that Jehovah's Witnesses do not have the truth, especially about the future events. And I'm not blaming these people. I'm blaming the organization. Now, when we come back in our final segment of this series, we will discuss what my research has uncovered on this subject. So until the next time, I would bid you God bless and have a great day.